What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Clutch Talk. New episode today. Unfortunately, I was not able to record in Orlando, and with that being said, I will not be doing an Omaha recap, only because it would probably be an hour-long video with all that happened that week in Omaha, and no one wants to listen to me talk for an hour. I don't want to talk for an hour straight, so we're going to move past it and get right into college football. Congrats to LSU Tigers on a great championship. They're continuing to build that dynasty in the baseball program. We're going to start with football now today. The format I'm going to do, we're going to preview two teams per episode, get as many teams as I can fit in, and then the last week before the regular season starts, probably before week 0, you got your team preview, or every team's record prediction, conference predictions, playoff predictions, and position rankings. So, that being said, we're going to start with Texas and Clemson today. We're going to kind of work our way down, I guess. I'm not saying Texas and Clemson are my preseason 1 and 2 because they're not, but I'm just finding two teams consistently. I think my next video is probably going to be Ohio State, Penn State, previewing those two. We're going to start with Texas and Clemson today. If you're new here and like the video, subscribe. And let's get started. We're going to start with Texas because they got probably the biggest storyline with another Manning being the starting quarterback for your football team this year. That's a big deal. And he's proven, I think he could be very legit. Texas fans have been waiting for this for a couple years now because they all knew that Quinn Ewers wasn't the guy. Last year it became especially evident that he wasn't going to be the guy that leads you to the promised land. And so they were kind of just sitting there waiting for the moment that Arch becomes starting quarterback. Now's that time because, I mean, it was getting so bad with Texas. I mean, Quinn Ewers was saying there's rumors he may come back, and Texas fans are like, no. And so they were trying to basically get him in the portal if he did come back, so Arch could be the starting quarterback. But now you have your quarterback, so we'll see how that goes. He's got really good running backs. Quintrivian Wiesner had 1,000 yards last year. And C.J. Baxter, the forgotten guy, tore his ACL last year. 5-star out of high school. He'll be the starting running back. Not starting running back. He'll be the second back, but it'll be a shared backfield, in my opinion. It could be very lethal. It could be very, very similar to Trayvon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. I think both of them could hit 1,000 yards. And you look at the receiver room, and you got Ryan Wingo, who's already shown great chemistry with Arch Manning. And they went and got Emmett Mosley out of Stanford, who could do some very, very good things. Had 500 yards last year. I think he could see an uptick. He could be receiver 2 next to Ryan Wingo. But this is a receiver room that's going to rely on a lot of those 5-stars that Sark has continued to pile up over the years and start to use them. Especially, I think you could see Jamie French, who's a true freshman out of last year's class, get on the field and play snaps early just because of how talented they are. I mean, Texas is the number 1 recruiting class, high school recruiting class. And I think he'll start to use those guys and rely on that youth and talent in the receiver room to get to throw to Arch Manning. If you look at the tight end room, Jack Indries, 620 yards from Cal. He'll get a lot of touches. That's one thing we've noticed from every Texas tight end is they're going to get touches. In Sark's offense, or the RPOs, flat route throws, all that stuff. Starting to transition from the defensive line or offensive line. DJ Campbell's back at right guard. Played 68% of the snaps last year. And no other guy played more than 40. And so that's something that needs to be taken into consideration too. Because Texas obviously had Kelvin, they were a very experienced group on the offensive line last year. Now you don't have that. And it's DJ Campbell and then the other guys that they're starting to just rise up. Again, these are high school recruits that are just rising up and playing. It's all these stacked recruiting classes over the years for Sark on the offense that are getting pushed into action now. And so we'll see how all that talent works out on the offensive line. If you transition over to the defensive line, Travis Shaw was a 5-star out of high school, and he transferred in from North Carolina. He was part of Mac Brown's big recruiting class he had in North Carolina, I think his second year. And he could be really good. He showed a lot of potential over his time. He couldn't really stay on the field, but last year he put up about 5 sacks, and I think he could put up some big numbers this year. Especially in a Texas offense Texas defense that has consistently been able to get to the quarterback. And then Cole Brevard from Purdue, another transfer they're really excited about on the edge. But this linebacker core, this was the story last year. You got Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, and Trey Moore. Those three are the best linebacker core in college football. They've all put up 7+ sacks, 10+ tackles for losses. They will all be first round draft picks. I guarantee it. Especially Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. I mean that those three linebackers on the defense hold that whole defense together. And then the corners, it's led by Malik Muhammad, but it's an experienced group, not going to blow you away with big numbers, but they've been consistent. They put up good team collective numbers on the defensive side of the ball. So that breaks down roster-wise. Last year, Texas offense was really, really good in the passing game, scoring game. They were top 30 in scoring, top 30 in total offense, 14th in passing, 71st in rushing, but I think that could go up. Again, if the offensive line gels, the newer offensive line gels, and you look at the two backs they have back there, I could see the uptick going up to the 50s in total rushing. And I think they'll actually rely on the running game more than they did last year. They were 89th in sacks allowed. I think that number will be very interesting to see in the first couple weeks, just with the offensive line being a little bit newer, what that offensive line looks like early on. And they're 42nd on third down, 100th in the red zone. 100 in the red zone is a big stat because it's how their season ended last year, right? You don't remember, they fumbled in the red zone. Jack Sawyer takes it all the way back to the house, 89 yards. Possession before that, they couldn't score in the red zone. So that's been the story last year is they couldn't score in the red zone. Now you have Arch Manning at quarterback. It's his job to make sure that those red zone possessions get capitalized because it's how you win and lose games. You win and lose games in the red zone. The red zone and third down are how you win and lose games. If your defense is really good on third down and in the red zone, and your offense is really good on third down in the red zone, you're going to win a lot of football games. So now look at the defense. They were top 3 in total defense, top 3 in scoring, 15th in sacks, 8th on third down, 3rd in the red zone, and then 7th in passing. They were top 10 defense all year long. Again, returning the defensive coordinator, keeping the linebacker group together, keeping the defensive line group together. They could be very, very lethal. Again, they could actually take an uptick and be the number 1 defense in the country. They really wanted to. And I think all the offense has to do to get Texas that next level, instead of being 29th in scoring, if they can get to 20th or 15th, I don't think they'll lose a game. So I think that's, again, Sarkisian's had that point now where he goes 5-7 his first year, 8-5, and then he makes the playoff and loses to Washington. But they're like, okay, he gets to the playoff, then he goes to the playoff again. First year in the SEC, they beat Arizona State in a crazy game, then lose to Ohio State in a game that I don't think they should have lost. And now it's like, okay, can you get over the next hump, which the next hump is either getting to a national championship or winning a national championship, right? And I think that could very much happen this year, again, because I think this is the only year you have of Arch Manning. So you have to, this is the all-in year. You have Arch Manning, like, this is it. Throw all the marbles in the bag. The worst case scenario, to me, is going to be 9-3, just because, let's say because again, they play at Ohio State, they play at Florida, they play at Georgia. They could lose all 3 of those games if let's say Arch Manning isn't what he ends up being, or the offensive line never ends up gelling, or the wide receiver room isn't what it was expected to be, or let's say the defensive line takes a step back. I think the only reason I think Texas ends up having this worst scenario, though, is that the offense don't work. I think the defense is going to continue to be very, very good. I don't see them dropping at all. But again, I think it all depends. Like if Arch doesn't end up being what we thought he was, or the receivers or offensive line, 9-3 is the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is a 12-0. I very much see it undefeated in here. If they, week 1 noon game, they catch Ohio State on a lull, beat them. They go into Georgia later in the year. Arch has figured it all out. The offensive line figured it all out. Defense is playing top 5 in the country. They'll win that game too. And then Florida, they'll win at Florida. Let's say Florida and what they end up, let's say they didn't get 9 wins like they were supposed to do. Then they go undefeated. The most likely, though, is 11-1. I don't think they lose both at Georgia and at Ohio State. I don't see it happening. I do think, though, there's a scenario where, let's say, Ohio State comes out fired up, Julian Sayin slinging the ball around, they beat Texas. Arch isn't really comfortable yet, but he'll go down there. He's more comfortable late in the year. He's got everything figured out, and he beats Georgia. Or, let's say, they catch Ohio State sleeping, noon game, post national championship and they beat Ohio State, and then they come into Georgia and let's say it's a night game at Georgia, and Gunnar Stockton is 10 times better than Carson Beck was, and Texas loses there. Or there's a scenario where they beat both of them, and then Florida, they kind of fall asleep heading into Florida, and Florida gets them. Or Texas A&M at the end of the year gets them at home, after they're about to go undefeated. So there's that scenario. I don't see them winning every game on their schedule because it's a pretty tough schedule, but I do think 11-1's most likely. And again, they could win all their games. I just don't see it happening, and I think they go 11-1. And that will transition us to Clemson. Dabo continues to get hate the last 4 years for not using the portal, NIL, not using it, and all this stuff. They don't think he can win anymore. They say he don't win anymore, but he still stacks up 9 to 10 win seasons. He won an ACC championship last year. He got to the college football playoff last year. He's got a heck of a squad coming back. He's always had a squad, and it just continues to blow my mind, the hate around Dabo Swinney. He's got the hype, but to me, the preseason Heisman favorite at quarterback this year in Cade Klubnik and a potential top 10 draft pick. He's got the best wide receiver room in the entire country in Tristan Smith, Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, and Bryant Wesco. Tristan Williams was actually a transfer he got from Illinois State, 1,000-yard receiver. And then he's got Antonio Williams with 900 yards, and TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco both had 700 respectively. So to say that he's not able to build a roster without the transfer portal and NIL, and he's not willing to adjust, he may not be willing to adjust, but he's still putting together a heck of a squad, and he still keeps winning. And with the roster he's got this year, I don't see how he couldn't win every game on the schedule. So we'll see. Dabo's out to prove a point, and I'm very interested to see if he can accomplish the point. He's trying to prove to everyone, I don't know if y'all realize this or not, that he is trying to prove that he can win national championship without the portal, and he's going to rub it in everyone's face when it's all said and done if he ends up winning a national championship and hoisting that trophy in Miami. Anyway, moving on, he's got 5 starters on the offensive line. And again, I mean, having such an experienced offensive line in college football is so important, especially when you have the weapons that is behind them. You got Cade Klubnik behind the offensive line. You got all these receivers on the outside. Having a good, experienced offensive line matters a lot, and they were very, very good offensive line last year, and they'll continue to be. The running back room's a little inexperienced. Jay Haynes will probably be the starter, but they'll probably be by committee just because they don't have anyone who really had more than 200 rushing yards last year, with Phil Maffa being gone. Moving on to defense, though, TJ Parker and Peter Woods will both be first-round draft picks. TJ Parker had 11 sacks last year. Peter Woods, if he stays on the field, will probably put up 10 sacks as well. Will Hite, again, another transfer that Dabo did get 3 transfers this year. Now, it ain't the 20 that Ole Miss got, but he got 3. And he got this one from Purdue, who had 5 sacks and was a starter at Purdue last year and will be a heavy producer for that defensive line. The linebacker room, it'll be true sophomore Sammy Brown headlining it with 5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. He was inexperienced last year, and it showed in his pass coverage, but I think he will be very much more relaxed in the pass coverage this year. I think you may see him with a couple of interceptions, and the experience will show from a year of playing college football, and I think he's ready for a big year. Wade Woodess had 9 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. He's more of the experienced linebacker, but again, that front 7 could be very, very, very good. The corner room, Avion Terrell headlines that with 11 pass deflections, 2 interceptions. You also got Jaden Lucas with 6 pass deflections and an interception. And then the safety Khalil Barnes had 4 pass deflections and 4 interceptions. A very sound, experienced defense. Again, you got God knows how many starters returning on the offensive side. God knows how many returns on the defensive side. This is set up for a very, very big year if everything goes to plan. And again, Garrett Riley being back on as offensive coordinator matters so much, especially when you got a quarterback returning. It's so important to have that coordinator returning. So you just same offense, same system. Let's get ready and roll. And if you look at the offense, people complain about the offense of Garrett Riley's first year. Well, man, it went up its second year. It was 11th in total offense, 18th in scoring, 30th on third down, 15th in passing, 49th in the red zone, 57th in sacks allowed. But I think that number will go up drastically with how many there with all of them returning and meshing again together. Um, Looking at the defense though, numbers that won't blow you away. 54th in passing, 85th in rushing, 69th in total defense. They were 42nd in scoring defense, 37th in sacks, but they were 42nd on third down, 51st in the red zone. I mean, nothing was blowing you away. But again, they were a very young defense last year. Sam Brown was a freshman. Your sophomores is T.J. Parker and Peter Woods. All of them being juniors and sophomores now, I think will help this defense drastically. And I think they could take all those numbers up to the top 30. And I think the offensive numbers could take a leap as well, um, particularly in protecting Cade Klubnik more. And I think the rushing numbers will go down. I think this will be a definition of like a Garrett Riley air raid, like a Lincoln Riley air raid, um, because I think that he's been waiting for this system where I think you'll see a lot of games where Cade Klubnik throws 45 passes. I think that's the system that he's leaning towards this year, just because you don't have a true running back. You'll have a by committee running back room. So it'll be a heavy passing offense this year. I think the rushing numbers will go down, but I think scoring could go up, total offense could go up, red zone could go up. I could see it being a very prolific offense again this year. Now, we talked about Dabo Swinney. He's trying to make a point this year because this is another all-in kind of year where Klubnik's gone after this year. Peter Woods, T.J. Parker are gone after this year. Clear Barnes has gone after this year. So it's like, let's get ready to. You got all your dice, all your marbles in a bag here. What's the worst scenario? The worst scenario is 8-4, and I say that because you look at the schedule. Game 1's LSU at home. That's a losable game. Let's say LSU, Garrett Nussmeier comes out slinging with that offense he's got. You lose that game. Going to Georgia Tech. Haynes King, Brent Key's got a heck of a team this year. They had a very good year last year. Let's say he loses that one too. And let's say you go to Louisville. Let's say Miller Moss got the ball slung on. Jeff Brom. Let's say Klubnik hadn't played as well as we thought he had. Because the preseason Heisman favorites seem to have never played well. Let's hope that changes this year, but usually it doesn't seem to go well. Let's say it doesn't go well. And you go to Louisville and Klubnik's not having the season we thought he had. We thought he would have. You lose that game. And then the end of the year, you got South Carolina going to Columbia. Let's say Lenore Sellers is the guy that ends up being like a Heisman front runner. And let's say Nick Harbor finally breaks out. Let's say Dylan Stewart is a defensive player of the year. I mean, let's say this South Carolina team ends up winning 9-10 games. And again, Clemson doesn't end up being what we thought they would. They lose that game. So 8-4 is the worst scenario on the schedule. The best, though, is undefeated. They could beat LSU because it's at home. They could beat Georgia Tech. They're more talented than them. They could beat Louisville. They're more talented than them. They could beat South Carolina. They're more talented than them. Even if it's a tough environment, they are more talented than South Carolina. So there is an undefeated path there for Dabo Swinney and Clemson. I think the most likely, though, is a 10-2. Out of those 4 games, because those are the 4 hardest games on their schedule, I don't think they even flinch in any other game. But out of those 4 games, there's more than likely they're going to lose 2. The most likely to me is losing to Georgia Tech on the road and losing to South Carolina on the road. To me, those are the most likely. But I could very much see them losing to LSU week 1 and losing to Georgia Tech early on in the year, and you're sitting early with 2 losses. It seems to happen in the last couple of years. Clemson, people freak out, and then they win every game the rest of their schedule. So I could also see that. But I think either way, I think the most likely is a 10-2, which to me would get them in the ACC championship, because they would win the ACC championship, in my opinion. I don't think there's any team that can beat them. And again, I think we're talking about another college football playoff spot. And if Cade Klubnik ends up being what we talked about as a preseason Heisman favorite, Clemson could go on it. They have the talent to win a national championship. That defensive front, if they take an extra step just with the year of experience and the talent that's on there, they could win their national championship with Dabo Swinney. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. With that being said, there were some of our predictions for both of them. Again, I think I'm probably going to do Ohio State and Penn State. People drive me nuts with these James Franklin takes, and I don't understand it. I mean, the dude got him to a national semifinal last year, and people still think he's an overrated coach. Ryan Day, feels on top of the world after his national championship, so I'm very curious to see what happens there. But I'll have those breakdowns for you shortly. Um, yeah, I said a lot. I didn't want to say a lot of oh, I think that Clemson will win the ACC championship because I want to save that for later in the year. But I said it anyway. And yeah, I do think Cade Klubnik's preseason Heisman. Would that be? And I think I stole Josh Pate's idea with the most likely, best, and worst scenario, but I liked it. And so we're gonna keep doing that. And with that being said, that will wrap up the end of our video. Again, if you like the video, subscribe. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you.